Modernisation Innovation Bubble. It started last year, and what we're trying to do obviously is trying to share best practice across the trust, and best practice actually from frontline staff, so they can show off a little bit and demonstrate all the good things, all the fantastic work they've been doing. So today we're featuring the Rapid Improvement event, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm Giselle Broomes, I'm the Deputy Director of Operations, and I'm the Senior Responsible Officer for the RIE programme, but it's these fantastic people here that are actually doing the work. So essentially the Rapid Improvement programme is a methodology, it's used nationally across the country. And usually the focus is some sort of pathway that's quite complex, that presents a wicked problem that people just can't seem to get to the bottom of. And usually it involves a variety of agencies, so that makes it even more complex. So because we've had issues in terms of our bed occupancy, the national team who sponsor the programme, so that's the team from NHS Improvement and NHS England, they wanted to support us to address some of our bed occupancy issues, and that just means that patients stay quite long in the hospital and we can't always move them out. So our occupancy rate is quite high, and that impacts on the flow in the hospital. So the aim of the whole programme was to focus on discharges and focus on getting our medically fit list down by at least 40%. And the medically fit list is a list of patients who have, well, I don't want to say overstayed their welcome, but have been in the hospital for a really long time, and we can't seem to get those patients out of the hospital, and you would have heard that on the news. So we, for the Rapid Improvement Programme, we've been focusing on discharges, and I'm going to shut up now and let the people who are actually doing the work and who are really passionate about what they've been doing tell you about what they have been doing. And just to mention that this programme involved a multiplicity of agencies, so about 50 people attend the workshop, and they're all from different parts of the system. So there's the commissioning, social services, there's the community, there's Alzheimer's and dementia, there's pupil care homes, continuing healthcare. I can't remember all of them. So it's a very rich programme in terms of the spectrum of people that that attend and are contributing to the successes. So we've got Beth who is brilliant at describing our journey.
Oh,
so
gosh.
Beth is
Pressure. I do like talking, so hopefully I'm doing okay. So we, as part of the Rapid Improvement event, we met for 4 days at the end of October, beginning of November. We first all turned up and thought, you know, a bit of head scratching went on. What are we doing? How are we actually going to achieve something within 4 days that's going to have a really good knock-on ripple effect throughout the rest of the hospital? So we kind of had a brainstorm of ideas about what people were thinking in terms of, you know, what the event might entail. People were looking for honesty. They were quite excited by the event. Some people were a little bit apprehensive because it did seem like quite a lot of work, and across a lot of areas, like Giselle said, it wasn't just within the hospital. We were working with partners within the community, including Virgin Care as well. We had a really informative presentation from a gentleman from ESIP, which is the Emergency Care Innovation Programme.
Yeah.
No-ish? Okay. His name was Charlie. And that's probably why it's abbreviated to ESIP, much more simple. But he told us about Mrs. Andrews, who was an elderly lady who came into A&E, and she ended up being admitted into the hospital and kind of got lost in this black hole. And it meant that she actually was unable to return to her previous level of functioning. So in terms of the way she was walking around and engaging with her husband, and she had a prolonged length of stay. It meant that she returned home, and unfortunately her husband wasn't able to manage, and she ended up going into a residential home. So the purpose of this story was just to highlight the fact that actually, because she got lost in the hospital network, she actually lost very valuable skills. And one of the key things that I took from that message was that someone who is in hospital for over 10 days loses 10 years of muscle mass. So imagine we've got an 80-year-old patient who then becomes 90. So actually we're de-skilling people as much as hospital is, to a lot of people, is the preferred place to be because it's safe, it's, you know, you're getting cared for. Actually, after a period of time when you no longer need that acute service, it's not the best place for you. So we did a lot of brainstorming and we had some amazing pictures. So afterwards I would get you to come and have a look at it. It looks like one of those kaleidoscope things that children used to have, you know, you swirl it around, and, or as Giselle just said, like spaghetti, and it really is like spaghetti. And we thought about this, and I think each group kind of was quite surprised at how much goes on and how chaotic it is and how confusing it is for our patients when they come in. Confusing for our patients, confusing for us as professionals to that they come across so many different areas and people. So we then moved on with that to looking at our Carlsberg, you've all seen the adverts, you know, Carlsberg made aeroplane services, or chocolate, it would be the best in the world. So that's the way that we try to think about what could be the best way that we could have a hospital service. And actually we had a lot clearer pathways for patients coming in, and particularly in the group, I speak from experience from my group, that we actually were able to turn around a patient before they'd left A&E really. They didn't have to be admitted into hospital, because in the ideal world the services they would have would be provided for in the community. Another really valuable experience that we all participated in was something called the waste walks. So that's where we went to different areas. As Giselle said, we used like Kent, we used the Sapphire unit, we went to Gratian Place, we went to Priory Mews, where Elm Court is, down the road. Some people went on to our Maple Ward, Ebony Ward and Linden, I believe. And we were having a look at what worked well, what didn't work so well, what were the general vibes of people that are actually working there, so we could get kind of first-hand what that might be and how perhaps areas could be focused on to improve. Then we were split up into, we've been split up into 4 groups, so, and this is what we'll then proceed to tell you about. So we had 4 work streams. So we had ED, so emergency department, in-service, in-hospital service, interface, and also communication. And that was really, again, we honed on different things underneath those those umbrella terms, to help with moving forward and to help with the flow, and then to obviously re-evaluate after 30 days and then the 60 days. So yeah, it was a very intense 4 days, but one that was quite exciting and quite productive for everyone, and it kind of gave us that, you know, oomph to carry on for the next 30 days to achieve. And everyone's going to tell you about their experiences and what we've achieved over the last 90 days. Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Right, so we start. So I'm going to present for Workstream 1 and Workstream 2. I primarily come from Workstream 2, but some of the projects that we've worked on have come from the first Workstream as well. So Workstream 1, as Beth said, was all about ED, and their aims were to reduce the number of non-acute attendances and also to optimise the flow. So from my point of view, within therapies and also with the help of Beth and support of Joe, we decided to have a pilot project on AMU where we put in a team of a physio and an occupational therapist to assess the patients early before we lost any of their muscle strength or they were admitted to the ward. Just as a bit of background, on AMU presently we have the IDT therapy team. They will only cover the patients who are ready for discharge that day, and they also have another, I think we worked out about 7 or 8 areas, including ED, minors, majors, resus, Cyprus, ward, MSS to cover before they get to AMU. There is no other therapy service up on AMU at the time, so we're losing those days for the patients. Some patients are staying on AMU 4 or 5 days in a row, and we're losing a lot of muscle mass from those patients. I think Charlie from ESIP gave us a really good study, and he said over the age of 65, it was a study done with women, we use 100% of our quadriceps strength to get patients to stand. patient loses up to 5% in one day of being immobile, which means that most of our patients are going to not be able to stand, even if we leave them just for one day. So Beth and I started collecting data on our AMU pilot project. You'll be able to read it all when you come up rather than from where you're sitting. But over a course of 12 weeks, we assessed 212 individual new patients. 108 of those had follow-up sessions whilst they were on AMU. And overall, just as a percentage, 54% went to the ward and 43% of those were discharged directly from AMU. Had they not had therapy input, the chances are those 43% would have also become patients on the ward, which would have made it a lot more difficult to get them discharged. So overall, the AMU project, whilst we were taking our time out of our normal working days, as well as seeing our other patients that we had on our caseload and our extra responsibilities, we were able to make an effect of all of those patients. What we've now decided to do, discussions are still in place from an occupational therapy point of view, but from a physio point of view, as of next week, we will have a physio team working within AMU as well as the rest of the wards in the hospital. So we're going to have a little look at redistribution of our staff to see whether we can start picking up those patients a lot quicker than if they were to hit the wards. So hopefully when we get back to the 120-day event, we'll be able to have a bit more evidence about what's going on there and how many patients we're effectively treating, and keep that as an ongoing service. That's about all I can tell you from Workstream 1, because that's not my workstream. Moving on to Workstream 2.
Becky, I just wondered whether Nelly would say just a few words about the dementia pathway.
Okay,
yeah.
So as well as the early mobilisation pilot that's going on in AMU, we looked at another cohort of patients that are at high risk of staying in the hospital much longer and that are at high risk of being admitted into long-term care prematurely, and that's our patients with dementia. So currently we've got a voluntary sector service that offers bridging service, which are longer packages of care for patients with dementia. So as part of RIE, the chief exec for ADSS is part of RIE, as an organisation. And she said that they could offer a different model, which is to take patients home on an enhanced care pathway, which you'll be able to see when you come up closer, where they'll take patients out from ED, stay with them within their home for 3 to 5 days to ensure that they don't reattend into ED, support them in their home, and aging and health consultants are supportive of this, and they'll be happy to continue to support that. That would ensure that, because 1 in 4 patients in this who attend ED are admitted into hospital with dementia because there are no services for them to be discharged to. So this will cut that number down quite significantly and reduce the number of patients who are, it's a ripple effect, because they'll need one-to-one care because their behavior deteriorates when they get admitted further into the hospital. So that's really promising, and there's a pilot starting with that mid-April to start taking patients on that new pathway.
Okay, thank you, Becky and Nelly.
Okay, moving on to Workstream 2. So Workstream 2 is where I originated from, and it's where Sue, who's home, that came from too. We were looking at the in-hospital services, and initially when we started off, we kind of were met with so many different answers for what goes wrong in hospitals. So we had it's a social services problem, it's a physio problem, it's an OT problem, it's everyone else's but mine problem. So what we decided to do, we latched on to one of the projects that ESIP has done in other places, and we looked at use of the red and green days. And red and green days was a really useful tool that we started to set up. But the basics of red and green days is to look at each patient on the ward and decide whether each day their stay in hospital was worthwhile. So a green day is a day that a patient is here and they have had an intervention that they could not have been in the community for. So that may have been an MRI scan that needed to be done, reported and treated upon straight away, IV antibiotics, waiting for things like investigations to be carried out or pressure sores to be treated, different things like that. A red day is days that patients are waiting unnecessarily. So if they're here and they're waiting for a care package or they're waiting for an OT or physio assessment, those are days that are spent waiting, but they're not necessary. So what we've done is we now have 9 different wards that we have this system in place on. It's filled out every day. And we have a little chart like this that's generated every day from our data that tells us how many patients we've got and their current length of stay. And it also tells us how many green and red days we've got. The drop-down list that we have on the red and green days template, which has been kindly donated by the ESIP team, but then rejigged by our own IT team, which has been really helpful, gives us a list of why these patients are here. And at the last Rapid Improvement event, what we did is we narrowed that down to sort of, I think it was about 15 to 20 categories of what delays a patient. So this little table at the bottom, which does forever change, tells us the top 10 amount of delays that we have. So on this snapshot, it said that our biggest delays were things like a seniors or speciality review and investigations and radiology. So this template and this chart is helping us to decide what is going wrong with inside the hospital. So what we did then is we had a little look at what we wanted to do over the next 30 days in terms of escalating the problem and changing what needs to happen. So we picked out our 3 biggest areas, which were social services delay, senior and speciality review, and investigations and radiology. And what we've decided is, we haven't decided, we've been told that we're being part of different pilot projects. I think there's a pilot project running on Ebony and Maple, which we're looking at starting to use section 2s and 5s. I think that's something that's going in discussions with social services. But social services have been really helpful from Bexley and from KCC to help us identify how we can refer in quicker. One of the achievements that has been made from KCC since the beginning of the event is that we can now refer online, and they'll accept referrals from any of us as professionals, so we can just go onto our PAS system and refer straight in rather than having to send a paper referral, which has been really helpful for Ken. We've escalated our senior and speciality review to our exec lead, and that means that we can try and get a little bit more help with getting consultants from different wards. So if you've got a medical outlier on a surgical ward, to get them in quicker and seeing the patient. And then we're looking into investigations and radiology and finding out what that exactly means in terms of delay from the wards. Is it the patients aren't getting there quick enough? Is it that they're not being reported quickly enough? What is the delay? And then we can start working on what the problems are. So it's taken us a little bit of time to start working out the problems, but we have done quite a bit of work on that. We've also done a bit of work with the normal ward handover. So we've tried to drill down on what we discuss on ward handover, and we're introducing stricter use of the expected date of discharge. So we're now changing how we use expected date of discharge. We're encouraging all of our pilot wards to not change what the original expected date of discharge is and measure it in plus and minus days. Okay? So if the patient goes home quicker than their expected date, it's a minus number, and if they go home after, it's a plus. And then we can work out from there what the issues are and how many times we're getting that expected date of discharge right. And then I think that's about it for Workstream 2. You can come and have a little look at what we've done, and there's probably too much to talk about, but given that there's a couple of other workstreams that need to have a little chat, then we'll go to Workstream 3.
And then talking about trusted assessors. So I'll go through these two, and then Beth can talk to you about discharge to assess. So when we were looking at the rehab and continuing healthcare, again, that's divided into 2 bits. It all gets quite convoluted, but it all fits together quite well. So Lisa, who is the ward manager from Spruce Ward, had a lot to do with setting up a much easier pathway for her patients to go to Sapphire unit, for instance. It was a very complicated route, it took time, but over a very short time of working with the person from there, it was actually organised that a 2-hour window could be set aside, so once an assessment was sent off, they would look. If it was accepted, the patient could move. Much better for the patient, much better for everybody involved. So that's worked really well, and that's been followed through, and that's been developed and moved forward. With continuing healthcare, for my group of patients from palliative care, who are very, very poorly patients, who are being referred through continuing healthcare, maybe for nursing home or package of care at home, we decided as a palliative care team to take on all the referrals for those patients because we had the appropriate information, and we felt we could give better information to continuing healthcare because they were getting referrals which they didn't quite think met the criteria because people didn't understand how to complete the paperwork. Fairly simple. When we're talking there about the spaghetti of all the different things going on, one ward nurse has to have a lot of knowledge about different things, and they can't really physically do it all. They can't keep that in their heads, it's not possible. So we've taken on completing all the continuing healthcare forms for fast-track patients, we've developed a much better relationship with continuing healthcare, which actually linked in to the bit about trusted assessor, so I'll come to that bit in a minute. So we've also been monitoring how they've gone through. They're going through quicker, they're going through smoother. They're understanding what our needs are, we're understanding what their needs are better, and that's really what this is all about, is actually just learning how we all work and what we can do better. So that's worked really well. So say Sapphire's working really well, that's going very well, it's going good. The trusted assessor, if anybody's had a patient, person who's been a patient or they've been involved themselves, they know that every time you see a health professional, you go through the same questions. What we were looking at is how can we speed that process up, how can we make it better for somebody, and if one person was considered to be a trusted assessor, so their information was actually accepted by another organisation, it not only makes it better for the patient, but it smooths that path again. So for instance, as a palliative care team now, we are trusted assessors for continuing healthcare. Our OT goes out and does a very thorough assessment, as all our OTs do, for a patient who's going home for end-of-life care. They are now sending their assessment on to continuing healthcare, so that is then accepted, that's moved that along quicker. And there's some work going on that we then found out that another group of people who need to come and do an assessment, for instance, is the ambulance crew. They need to check, see how many steps there are in the house, what's going on. That information is already known by the OT who's done the assessment. So again, the OT is becoming the trusted assessor for the ambulance crew. So you can see how when you start looking and underpicking these things, you don't always realise where there can be delays, and if we can smooth it forward, it makes life a lot easier, and for the patient who doesn't have to keep answering the same questions. So trusted assessor is moving forward. We are trying very hard to get trusted assessor moving forward between us being in hospital and nursing homes. So we don't always have to wait for a nursing home to come in and assess a patient here. They will accept what we've done. Again, easing things for the patient, easing things for the hospital. So there's lots of things moving on. As part of the nursing home work, we are having a session here. We're inviting the nursing homes in here to meet us. It was going to be April, but it actually clashes with our next RIE event, so we're moving that to May. And we're inviting them in here to tell them about what work we're doing and to build some relationships with them and take things forward that way. The last bit for me to talk about probably is with the hospice. Again, with my poorly patients, it's again developing that trusted assessor with the hospice to say this is how we find the patient, we think they need to come to you, and smoothing that forward and getting a better relationship there so we can speed things up that way. I think that's all I need to talk about for now, Beth, then it's the discharge to assess, which is Beth.
Thank you, Kay. So I was involved with the Workstream 1, which is discharge to assess. So it seemed that it was complex to start, but hopefully once it's really in full swing, it's going to be really smooth in terms of getting patients home in a really timely manner. So our initial difficulties that we had was that because we were trying to interlink so many different services, we had the hospital teams, we had KCC, who are Kent Social Services, and we also had Virgin Care as well. So we've got three very big organisations trying to work for the same cause of the patient to get them home. Discharge assess is being publicised quite openly at the moment around the country, and there's lots of different areas that are actually facilitating it. So we've got, there's Warwickshire that are doing it, there's Sheffield that are doing it, and closer to home there's the Medway model as well, which is called Home First. A lady who facilitated that, set that up, is called Lisa Riley, who was seconded by ESIP to look at the services that we have at Darren Valley in order to help see how we could also utilise it to get our patients home in a quicker manner. So we had to wait a little bit for that report that went out, and it was quite difficult to kind of help facilitate, move things forward, because we didn't have a project lead really to help with kind of communicating with some of the higher level authorities. We do have a lead now, that's Mimi Aruba, who she's, some people might know her from the site team. So she's been really quite pivotal really in the moving forward of the Discharge to Assess programme. We ran the Discharge to Assess programme, started about 3 weeks ago, where we tried it with one patient, and basically what we do is that from the front door ward, so that's ED, medical short stay, Cyprus, could even be Resus or Evergreen, we have a look at our patients, see if they're appropriate to go home, We then ring Kent Social Services that are based here for us in hospital service, who then we use them as a single point of access. They take down some information about the patient, and then they forward the referral to our community teams, Virgin, who are then the first responders when that patient goes home. We also have the very valuable Poulton service, who are our care providers if that patient does need extra care as well. So yeah, we started that about 3 weeks ago with, obviously there's some teething difficulties with it, but actually we've been able to improve the intake to two patients a day. So what it means really, I didn't actually explain to you what discharged assess really means, apart from the services that I told you were involved in it. It means that the patient, once they're medically optimised, are then taken home, and actually the assessment happens within their own home. Now, from an occupational therapist point of view, that's the ideal place to assess someone, because they're in their own environment, everything's familiar to them, they have their own habits, roles, routines that we can actually see and get better information about how that person might manage at home, whether it's alone or whether it's with support, whether they need equipment. So it's really ideal in terms of an OT point of view, and actually far better for the patient to be in their own home. As we said before, you know, patients shouldn't really stay longer than is necessary within hospital because of the other risk factors that it can cause on their general health and well-being. So for them to go home and have that assessment and that support gives better effect actually for lesser readmissions. It's far better for them in terms of their muscle strength, their functional ability and cognitive ability as well. So yes, we're going to aim with our perfect week that's coming up in the next week, or the week after. We're aiming to take 3 patients home from hospital in a timely manner, so that they can be assessed in their own homes, rather than wait for the therapist to see them. And you know, as it goes on and on, unfortunately they get other investigations, things like that, and we go back to our spaghetti mess really. So with discharge to assess, it cuts all the spaghetti out, cuts it into pieces, and you've got your macaroni, I suppose. So it's much easier to digest and move forward with. So yeah, a lot of work's been going on with regards to that. There's a pathway here that Mimi's kind of written up, which has agreed with all the partners that are involved in this project. And yeah, it's been really positive, I think, for the patients that are going home. So there's lots of work still to go with it, and evaluation of the service and where things can be improved. What other things might we need to help with that process?
Okay. Yes.
So our storming probably went on from day 1 to 30. From 30 to 60, we were definitely norming, and from 60 to 90, boy, we were definitely performing. So what did we actually do? What were our plans? What did we want to do? First of all, in our days 0 to 30, we recognised that the emergency department had successfully produced an excellent video on informing the general public on when to come to the emergency department and when not to come to the emergency department, and what other resources were out there for them. I'm just going to, sorry about this. So Kevin, the general manager for emergency department, had produced this very good video, and what we did was he played it in the emergency department. It had over 100,000 repeats. It was also extended to the CCG for Dartford, Gresham and Swanley, and to Bexley CCG, who in turn sent it out to their GPs. Their GPs then played it in their surgeries, so to all people waiting for their appointments. Glyn used his contacts and sent it out to all the schools in the area, get them young, get the children viewing it and liking it and sharing it, and then going back home and telling their parents about it as well. And Glyn also used his contacts in the local newspapers. We have very good rapport with our local newspapers, and they actually promoted the message that we were trying to promote as well. So while that was going on, we were also working in the background at our other drivers. One of the drivers was that we wanted to improve the education that the general public had about
improving their health and well-being. And to begin with, we wanted to tell them about anything and everything to help them. Andy stepped in and said, concentrate on 2 things. Concentrate on the things that bring the patients into the emergency department the most. So being well hydrated so that they're not coming in with UTIs, and keeping warm so that they're not coming in with chest infections and pneumonia. So a leaflet was produced about hydration, and that is the leaflet up there about urinary tract infections and about the importance of hydration, which is an excellent leaflet. This again was promoted by the local newspapers. It was also uploaded along with everything else onto our trust website, so we were using all the platforms we possibly could to get the messages out there. The other thing that we wanted to do, so as well as promoting hydration and keeping warm, Susan Acott, our chief exec, was very, very keen to spread the message that was coming out from NHS England about the 4 questions that every patient should be able to have answered every single day. And they are, this is going to test me, what is wrong with me? What is going to happen to me? What do I need to get me home, and when am I going to go home? And so we promoted that message through a poster which was made, that's this poster here, and we put some examples as well as to what might be the answers or what we were talking about when those questions were asked. And those posters are going up all over the hospital with the help of our voluntary services. And so they're going up behind the patient's beds, they're going up on the drugs trolleys, the food trolleys, on the back of the toilet doors, on the front of the wards, and down in our education centres as well. As well as the poster, we were working all the time on a patient information leaflet. And this leaflet is for every single patient that gets admitted to this hospital. In the past, what they were having was a letter from the Director of Nursing, and we wanted to bring it into the 21st century, no disrespect for what was already there, but we wanted to bring it into the 21st century. We wanted to send out our message about what does the patient's journey actually look like. It's the message that we have been talking about in all of the other work streams. So we wanted to show them what that flow was, and here we have the leaflet. We wanted to tell them what would happen when they come into hospital, what to expect, the 4 questions that they should be able to have answered, the importance of keeping hydrated, what other care facilities were there to help them as well. And it has turned out in a 3-page leaflet, which is now going out to all patients as they come in. I think I have probably covered. We're very, very proud of what we have achieved. Val, before she left, because she recently left the innovation team here at Durham Valley Hospital, made sure that that actually was completed and has gone out, and we've had the launch of it at the front of the hospital. And we're very grateful now to Sarah Thomas from the innovation team, who is going to take over the leadership of that leaflet. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So all of the speakers mentioned things like 30 days and 60 days. So I just kind of wanted to clarify what the governance arrangements are for the programme. So each work stream has a work stream lead and a deputy work stream lead. There's also an exec lead, and Andy's been the star of the show today. And essentially, we wanted to have an exec lead for each work stream so that they do what Andy's done for this work stream, i.e. unblock any blockages, because this is about enabling and empowering frontline staff to do what they need to do, and for senior members to unblock the things that stop them doing that. And as the senior responsible officer, if there are any issues that people wanted to bring to me, Nelly. So Nelly running around trying to make things happen and trying to support the teams, because this is on top of people's day job. So Nelly from the service improvement team and all the other members of the service improvement team are also helping. We also we've taken a project management approach. So if you went on to level 4, You kind of see the project management structure that we adopted. Each of the work streams meet on a regular basis. So all this work that they're doing is, as I said, on top of their day job, they're meeting regularly. We also have a huddle on a weekly basis, which the exec team members attend, just to support, hear about what progress is being made, and again, to unblock any blockages in the system. So I agree with Leslie Ann, this is a big wow, considering that we started in October, and that was kind of day zero. That was day zero, then we met 26 days later, so we've chopped up all the actions in zero, so the quick wins, and we had quite a few quick wins, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, so it would be 3 months normally, the life cycle of a project like this, but we wanted to have 120 days as well, because there's so much work happening, and we didn't want to lose the momentum, and actually, that day is going to be a huge celebration day, because you guys have done so well, and Leslie Ann's right, we really should be proud of ourselves, and you should be proud of yourselves, and what we want to be able to do is to spread this methodology across the trust. So we want to really encourage people, if they think that there's a problem that they want to solve, that they require engagement from other members of the staff across the hospital, or even externally, we want to encourage them to adopt this methodology. And all of these brilliant people here are champions for this methodology, and I'm sure would want to support and help with that. So thanks everyone for coming.
Can I just say one more thing, Giselle? I didn't actually explain what our success was in the way in which we went from storming to norming and performing. And I did mean to put that in. And the secret was, and I'm telling you this because if you want to go forward and do innovation, it is so important. And that is to meet regularly, to set up regular meetings. It doesn't matter who can get there to the meeting and who can't get there to meeting. Sometimes Nellie and I would be meeting together, or we'd have a phone in the middle of the table and we'd be talking to someone from outside for the whole of an hour, you know, while we had that meeting. But it's important that all your members know that you're having the meeting. They can get there if they can. Not everyone has the control over whether they can get to a meeting or not, but their contribution still has to be very much valued, and they can do other things as well to help. And so it's the valuing who's in your team, recognising their contribution, but essentially having those regular meetings and keeping communicating and updating with everyone. Thank you. I really didn't want to miss that bit out.
No, really important. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming as well.
Thank you. Everyone have a